Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here, and welcome back to another episode of Square Theory. Today's topic is a little bit complicated, and I wanted to make sure I got every single word right, so I am going to be doing it in PyCon form instead of live action. Now, what makes a SpongeBob episode bad? Obviously, stuff like characters being annoying, boring stories, humorless episodes, and so on are the reasons why we don't like some episodes, but I want to look a little bit more at the root cause of these things. I very highly doubt writers go into an episode intentionally trying to make things annoying to the audience or dull or anything like that. So, how does it turn out that way sometimes, and why is SpongeBob very susceptible to bad episodes? My theory is that the reason for how most of the bad episodes come to be is that they feature jokes that simply didn't work. Let's take A Pal for Gary, for example. The reason this episode sucks is mostly because of one thing: SpongeBob being a total jerky blind moron. Outside of that, there isn't much else wrong with that episode, aside from a lack of jokes. So, if you were someone who finds the joke of SpongeBob not understanding reality to be funny, and hey, no judgment here if you do, then this episode might be great to you, as it would have a ton of jokes about that subject that you would probably find very funny, and you wouldn't see a problem with the story. And in that way, a lot of it is just very subjective, and no episode can ever be truly good or truly bad outside of a personal standpoint, or by non-unanimous consensus. But let's get a little less philosophical and keep in mind that for every type of joke, there are a million different ways to present it, and some are simply going to work better than others in getting across the idea to the audience. Personally, I believe that anything can be funny under the right circumstances, and I have found that the ignorant shtick can work on occasion with episodes such as Imitation Crabs. Yet I do not like how the joke is presented in A Pal for Gary, and that all comes down to the details, like how mean SpongeBob is to Gary despite claiming that he cares about him so much. Maybe without that, the jokes would work better. Maybe having SpongeBob realize he was wrong at the end would have helped the story. Maybe something as simple as the timing on the jokes was just a bit off. And if it was a little bit different, it would have been a lot better. For whatever reason, though, I do not find these gags in that episode to be funny. And without the comedy factor, you aren't as entertained, and therefore more likely to get irritated or bored and will pick apart the story in ways you never would have if you actually found the episode funny. Let's look at the joke in Karate Star about Patrick almost karate chopping a baby. Now, I found it funny thanks to the delivery and how unexpected and dark it is. However, if you didn't laugh at that joke and don't find it funny, you're now just sitting there thinking, wow, Patrick almost murdered a baby. What an irredeemable character. What I enjoyed as a joke is now something that is bringing down the story in a big way for someone else. And that's just down to individual interpretation. Another example is the I'm with stupid divide. I like the episode, but will admit that the story is a bit dumb. Pun intended. However, I don't care as much because I found the whole episode to be really funny. Ultimately, a lot of it comes down to how funny or unfunny you found Patrick being mean to SpongeBob is, and if you thought the ending was really funny or really stupid. And those two things will determine whether you really like this episode or really don't like this episode. And I would assume that in a lot of these cases, the writers simply thought something was funny and a lot of audience members just disagree. And that's just a part of creating art. It's also important to note that the writer's taste can be very different from the hardcore fan's taste, which can also differ from the casual fan's taste. Remember, writing for the show is very different from being a fan of it. When the writers are making an episode, the characters are just rough ideas they're trying to shape, whereas when we see the episode, it's a finalized product with the magic of animation and voice acting and everything, bringing to life the character. Sometimes, though, there are episodes and moments that most of the fandom can agree are just absolutely terrible and pretty far away from being funny. Things like One Course Meal's suicide attempt by Plankton, Fungus Among Us's general grossness, the Splinter, and the toenail scene. What happened in these instances? Did the writers just say, let's throw in some crap that we know people won't like, just for funsies? But I'm pretty sure that the writers on this show are never intentionally putting in things that they think people will hate. In these instances, it's entirely possible that there was a really good joke in there, but something screwy happened between storyboard and final animation that may have messed up that joke. Creating an animated show is a major collaborative effort. Maybe the network censored a joke and the replacement joke was lame. Maybe the animators in Korea misinterpreted a note and drew something wrong. Maybe one writer found something funny that another didn't and the compromise pleased no one. Maybe the delivery of a line went wrong due to poor direction or voice acting. Maybe the sound effects weren't effective in the joke. Maybe something got lost in a rewrite. There are a million things that can go wrong when this many people have their hand in a writer's vision. Even though SpongeBob makes billions, the show does only get a tiny fraction of that for its budget. And they have a deadline, meaning that they can't just infinitely redo things that come back from Korea that they aren't happy with. So give the writers some slack. Yes, these episodes are still terrible. I'm not saying that knowing this makes them any better, but it was most likely just a mistake that someone else made, or maybe even an accident and not something intentionally made by a writer to be bad. So there you go. When a joke bombs with you, it can have a big negative effect on how you view an episode that someone else who laughed at that joke will completely disagree with. It's important to keep in mind that people have different perspectives and interpretations, and comedy is very subjective. Also, what a writer finds funny, an audience member may not. And additionally, a lot of things in the production process can screw up a joke or a moment thanks to how complicated it is. So if I had to blame someone for this stuff, I would probably blame the Nick execs who keep ordering so many episodes and not giving the show enough of a budget. But really, critiquing episodes is not about playing the blame game. It's just about discussing the merits of the art. I just wanted to make this video to point out that a lot of the things that people wonder, how did that end up in an episode, are things that probably were just a mistake or a miscommunication or just something not translating very well from storyboard to final animation. Or just something that the writer found funny and some of the audience didn't. Maybe the toenail scene wasn't supposed to look as gross as it was, and I know for certain A Pal for Gary was supposed to be funny. But what do you guys think? Pie Guy rules, out.